Tonight on the Daily Debrief, a missing Chicago boy is found dead. His father is one of the people accused of killing him. Also,
the words of the officer were, "I saw the burned body of a little person."
a stepmother is accused of starving her 11-year-old stepdaughter to death.
She didn't look well. She looked very thin.
And then incinerating her body in a garbage can. Now she's taking her life into her own hands. And a recording of an NFL owner allegedly soliciting a prostitute will remain sealed for now. This is the Daily Debrief. It's Wednesday, April 24th. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Debrief. Aaron Keller along with Linda Kenny Button. Good to see you, Linda.
Nice to see you, Aaron.
All right, Judge Ashley Wilcott will be with us in just a moment from Atlanta. A Chicago boy missing for 1 week appears to have been found dead, and now his parents are facing charges. Authorities are all but certain that they've recovered the body of 5-year-old A.J. Friend in a shallow grave in Woodstock, Illinois. That's about 60 miles northwest of Chicago. They say Andrew Friend Sr. and Joanne Cunningham led them to the body after police reviewed cell phone records. Those two adults are now charged with murder and other charges relating to AJ's disappearance.
To members of the community, to AJ's family, our deepest and heartfelt condolences on AJ's loss. This is not the outcome that we want to talk about when we come before you, but it is the unfortunate result in this investigation. The commitment that our folks as a team have exhibited over the last 6 days to bring justice really brings a lot of emotion to me, and those emotions are mixed. One is that emotion of pride to be part of something that is positive, which is the outcome of getting justice. Part two is the sadness that we have a dead 5-year-old child who has now been recovered based on the efforts of some incredible investigative work.
The father now facing murder charges is the one who called 911 to report the child's disappearance. Here is some of that call.
Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
We have a missing child. Woke up this morning and he wasn't.
How old is the child?
Yeah, missing child.
Yeah, how old is he?
He's 5.
And what was he last seen wearing?
A Mario, like blue long sleeve sweatshirt and a black sweatpants.
And is he a male white?
Yes.
And when was the last time you seen him?
Last night, probably 9:30, when he went to bed.
Okay. Are you the father?
Yes.
Yes. Do you know where you met him when?
No. We've canvassed the neighborhood. I went to the local park, the local gas station down here where we sometimes take him to buy treats. I spoke with the assistant principal over there at the school where the park is, and they haven't seen Kim or any other child. I have no idea where he would be.
That is the man now facing murder charges. A Georgia woman is facing a possible death sentence for allegedly starving her own stepdaughter to death, and she's taking her life into her own hands by defending herself without a lawyer. Tiffany Moss refused to give an opening statement on charges she killed 10-year-old Imani Moss. Prosecutors say the defendant even burned the girl's dead body to hide evidence. They say she took care of her own children, but not her stepchild. The prosecutor said the victim's life was filled with misery.
So this defendant stayed at home and took care of the babies and watched Imani and was responsible for the discipline of Imani. And in 2010, in March, she beat the lights out of that child. She used a belt. She used the buckle end of the belt. And the next day, when Imani went to school, the teachers noticed that there were bruises all over her. And they reported it because they're required to. And it's the right thing to do. They reported it. And there was a police investigation. And this defendant was eventually charged with cruelty to a child in the first degree and pled guilty to that charge and was sentenced. And that changed the entire dynamic of this family. Because you'll learn that this defendant has a background in early childhood education. That for a while she worked as a teacher in a pre-K. But with that conviction, she couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't have her job. She couldn't have what she was trained to do. And she was at home with 2 little babies and a 10-year-old girl that wasn't hers.
That prosecutor said victim Imani Moss tried to run away from home and that this defendant was investigated by state child protection authorities. Imani remained in the care of the defendant and things grew steadily worse. Some might question the girl's father's involvement. He was working nonstop, prosecutors say, to pay the bills.
For all intents and purposes, Imani vanished from the face of the earth. For all intents and purposes, Imani vanished from the face of the earth. They filed a notice with the state that they were going to homeschool their children. You'll hear testimony from neighbors in the apartment complex that said they knew this couple had 2 children, but they never saw the third one. Were never aware that that child would even existed. They saw instances where Aman and the defendant and Tristan and Emma would go out. They said, we never saw the third child. So the defendant is there with a stepdaughter she hates, 2 children of her own. And in the fateful week of Halloween of 2013, right before the body was discovered, we're going to show you a series of events. Halloween was on a Thursday. But according to the statement of Aman, it really began on October the 24th. On the 24th, he came home from work and found Imani unresponsive in a bathtub. She couldn't speak. Her eyes rolled back and forth, but she couldn't communicate. And Aman picked her up and put her into bed, and she never left that bed. Because either on the 28th, or more likely the 30th, she died.
The prosecutor then went on to tell the story of how this defendant and the girl's father, Aman, tried to allegedly cover up the girl's death.
The defendant was home when she died, and in fact may have called Aman at work and said, Imani's passed. But certainly when Aman came home from his first job, on the 30th, he discovered Imani dead. The defendant was in the room when he discovered her dead and said, we have to hide the body. I can't go to jail. I don't want to lose my other children. So Aman went to work for his second job, and after that job, he went to Walmart and he bought a trash can. You'll see that trash can. And we know at that point, from his own statement, that he took Imani out of her bed, a bed that we'll show was soiled with human waste, and they flipped the mattress, and the next day, this defendant went to Anna's Linens and bought a new coverall and new sheets, and she put they flipped the mattress, stripped the bed, put the new cover on it, and the whole plan was, we're going to get rid of the body. We have to get rid of the body. Those are the words of the defendant, and we'll report her as a runaway.
So how did police get this case? The girl's father said he was suicidal, that he was sitting with the body of his dead 32-pound, 11-year-old daughter, and that she had been burned. After opening statements, the prosecution backtracked to present witnesses who had dealt with the defendant's past abusive conduct.
What did she tell you?
She admitted to striking Amani with a brown leather belt, as Amani described it, for not doing her homework.
Did she describe to you how many times she thought she had struck Amani?
She said she thought it was only 3 times.
Is that consistent with the injuries that you observed?
Not at all.
And based on, did she make any other statements to you?
Yeah, she said she had given Amani 5 minutes to complete her homework, sent her to her room, and when the 5 minutes was up and Amani had not completed her homework that morning, that's when she struck her with the belt. She said Amani tried getting away from her, and she actually physically demonstrated Amani covering her face like that to avoid being struck with the belt.
And based on the evidence that you gathered in this case, what did you do?
I secured a warrant for Tiffany's arrest for cruelty to children in the first and arrested her.
That didn't work, though. Ultimately, Amani Moss lived with her grandmother for a time, and here is how the grandmother described her development getting shut out of Amani's life and calling the authorities eventually.
How was Amani doing in school at that particular time?
Well, when she was with me, everything was improving, her grades, her action, and even she was just doing awesome, a lot better than she was, because they said she was closed in, and she started having tantrums and screaming. So I don't know what was going on before then, but I know when she came back with me, everything calmed back down in her life.
After that time in 2010, were you able to see Amani very often?
No.
Did you make efforts to try to see her from that fall of 2010 until ultimately she died?
Yes, I did.
Would you, what type of efforts did you make in order to try to talk to her or see her?
I called my son, and he would just say,
Can't tell me a lot about what Iman said, okay? But were you allowed to see her?
I was not allowed to see her.
All right. Was it something that you did repeatedly in order to see your granddaughter?
Yes, I did. And when I couldn't see her, I called DFACS.
Did you make reports to DFACS based on that?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, that grandmother did get to see Amani Moss, but said that she did not look well and was very thin. Next, testimony from another officer about why Amani Moss wanted to run away from home.
What did she tell you about why she was at the apartment leasing office?
She said that it was her intention to run away.
Did she explain to you why she was going to run away?
She did. She said about a week prior, her stepmother tied her to a chair utilizing belts and put her under a cold shower.
As you observed her, were you able to see any injuries or welts on her arms or anywhere on her body?
I did ask her to see her arms. As she started to lift them to show me, she became hesitant and then put them back down by her side. Her statement to me was that the belts did not hurt, so there weren't any marks.
When that officer interviewed the defendant, she said Amani was simply resentful of being in a blended family and denied strapping Amani down. The officer felt he did not, in that moment, have enough information to arrest the defendant at that time. Meanwhile, Amani Moss's teacher called the victim a true joy as a student.
Amani's behavior in your classroom, was she ever disrespectful in your classroom?
Never.
Okay. What about her obedience to you? In other words, was she ever defiant or disobedient where you had to take disciplinary action?
No, the only, she was precious. It was a blessing to have her in my classroom. She, the only issue we had was having her homework completed on a regular basis. She had difficulty completing her homework. The only outburst that I ever had was she cried because we had these behavior sheets that we had to write on, just to keep a record, and I was going to write down that she didn't complete her homework, and she cried and cried, and I told her it would be okay.
Those type of sheets, did those go home with the child for their parents to see?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say that the only type of schoolwork that she had trouble was just getting back to school with her homework completed?
Yes.
When we talk about what happened in the classroom and her doing her work in the classroom, was she able to perform her work and her schoolwork during the day just fine?
Yes, she was.
Joining me tonight to discuss this case is Judge Ashley Wilcott from Atlanta and criminal defense attorney Linda Kenny-Bodden in studio with me here in New York. So, Judge Wilcott, let me start with you on this one. It seems to me that this is a train wreck that we see coming, yet no one stopped it. First, there were brushes with the law. Then you've got the teacher saying that she performs great in class, but for some reason isn't getting her homework done. That's a sign that something is wrong at home. And then you have the police officer saying, well, she tells me this story, she's hesitant to show me marks, but then I'm going to believe the mother, who's now the defendant, that nothing really happened here. You're a juvenile court judge, you deal with this kind of stuff. What do you make of these systemic failures to catch this?
Well, Aaron, I completely agree with you. And just a reminder, she ran away 4 different times when she was 9 years old. That doesn't happen unless it's a red flag. There's something going on. This was a system fail. That's what I make of this, Aaron. A system fail. Along the way, there were many opportunities when different agencies were involved that theoretically should have provided the safety net for this child so that she was not further abused. That didn't happen in this case.
Okay, Linda Kenny-Bodden here. The defendant here is representing herself, giving no opening statement. She's not even reserving a chance to give an opening statement later on, and she's asking absolutely no questions on cross-examination.
0 questions on
What's
cross.
going on?
Well, I think either she wants to put it in God's hands, or she doesn't want to attack her child, or she feels, I'll save it for the death penalty because I'm not going to get the death penalty. My husband didn't get it, I'm not going to get it. But whatever it is, Aaron, it's not right. I mean, everything you're hearing about this case is not right. It's bothersome. It's unbelievable, quite frankly, from the child running away trying to get help to this woman representing herself in the courtroom.
Judge Wilcott, I'll ask you this one question quickly here. The defendant's prior bad acts are coming into evidence. That's oftentimes a policy consideration, even though the rules of evidence discourage it highly. Right or wrong in this situation?
Well, right. Georgia law specifically provides, Aaron, that it's not admitted for the purpose of showing character, but rather for a purpose of, for instance, the motive, the plan, that it wasn't a mistake, that it wasn't an accident. I believe it's absolutely correct that it's admissible in this case.
All right, Judge Wilcott, we'll see you at the end of the broadcast along with Linda Kenny-Bodden. And still ahead tonight here on The Debrief, Robert Kraft's attorneys score a victory in their efforts to prevent a police recording of him from becoming public. Plus, a quick recap of what's happening in the case of a California man accused of killing a family of 4. We head back inside the courtroom after this break. Welcome back to The Debrief here. The recording, which purports to show New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft receiving sexual stimulation at a massage parlor, will not be released before Kraft goes to trial. That's the word from the judge overseeing the case. The prosecutor said Florida statutes and case law were clear and that they required him to make the recording available to those who requested it. That's unless the judge ordered him not to. So that's what the judge did after many heated requests to block the recording's release from Kraft's defense team. Kraft pleaded not guilty to charges that he solicited prostitution. Now to the McStay family murders in California. Defendant Chase Merritt is accused of killing his business associate, Joseph McStay, and the entire McStay family. The family disappeared in 2010, and authorities stopped looking for clues after they presumed the family had just vanished into Mexico. Years later, the graves of all 4 of the McStays turned up in the Mojave Desert. Defense tests on 2 items buried with the McStay family in shallow graves revealed the DNA profiles of 3 unknown people. The unknown profiles came from a rope tied around Joseph's neck and from Summer McStay's bra, which was cut, presumably by her attacker or her attackers. The unknown profiles are from none of the McStays and are not from the defendant, Chase Merritt. So who are they from, and are they from the real killers? And why is the defense having to perform their own tests on these items after state authorities failed to yield these clues? The defense is naming another man as a possible person responsible for the killings. His name is Dan Kavanaugh, and he claimed to have been in Hawaii when the McStays disappeared. But defense forensics experts say that might not be true. Someone accessed Kavanaugh's PayPal account from a Hawaii IP address on January 14th. That adds up. But the account was accessed from Southern California January 26th through February 14th. The family is believed to have been killed on the 4th and was gone by the 5th. The account was not accessed from outside Southern California again until April 17th, when it was accessed from Washington State. So, back now to Judge Ashley Wilcott and attorney Linda Kenny-Bodden. Linda, we keep shaking our head about this. I guess we're going to just keep doing it. We're hearing new theories from the prosecution that maybe the kids were killed in the bathtub in their own home, and then everything was cleaned up, and that's why there's no blood on the scene. And aren't bathtubs just great places to kill people and then wash everything down the drain? I mean, what about luminol here? They can find some of this stuff, right?
They did luminol, and they clearly looked at the drains, Aaron, and the drains didn't have any blood in them. They would know that. You know, they had a nice little cross-examination about the clothes being there and the kids not having clothes. But look, 2 kids are killed, 3 and 4 years old. This doesn't look like a regular I hate you murder. There's something more here, and I don't trust anything that's being done because, quite frankly, nothing good was done by the prosecution here, the law enforcement. They didn't do it at the time, and there we are.
Judge Ashley Wilcott, okay, where does this case go? Does the prosecution just get to kind of like come up with this bathtub theory midstream here? The defense threw a fit about it.
They did, and they should have. They should have objected because the prosecution is backpedaling. They're trying to figure out, what do we do now? Our theory of killed in the house, there's an expert for defense saying, nope, we don't think that happened. There's not any blood or remnants in the house indicating that. So the prosecution can try. The defense is going to continue to object, and it all equals reasonable doubt, in my opinion.
Linda, we've got less than a minute left here. Okay, so is there any way to salvage this from the prosecution? And look, I understand prosecutors want to charge a case because you have a bunch of innocent victims here, for sure. I understand the urge to charge a case, but you have to charge when you have enough evidence.
Here's what they could do. They could possibly say, look, we don't know about the kids. We're going to tell you, yes, we thought we could prove it. But on the father, he was the last person to see him. He was the last person to talk to him. He has this tool shed, you know, near where supposedly they had lunch, and maybe that's enough. I don't know, but it's not enough for death penalty. Maybe enough for conviction.
You know, look, the unknown DNA, some of this other stuff that we're waiting for, I'm not feeling confident about this one. I understand when prosecutors have confident cases. I'm not seeing it here. Panel seems to agree with me tonight, at least tonight.
Yes,
good to have you both on the broadcast tonight.
Thanks, Aaron.
We will be back tomorrow at 5 o'clock Eastern, right here on the Daily Debrief. We'll see you then.